श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पाद शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः अर्धमात्राममात्राञ्च देवतां विजनोज्ज्वलाम् ओङ्काररूपिणीं देवीं नित्यं वन्दे सुनिर्मलाम्. So, we were looking at the second verse of the Dwadasha Adhyaya, and the prasanga that Bhagavan has brought up, or not even Bhagavan is answering a certain prasanga. The prasanga that Arjuna has brought up is that there are two categories of spiritual practitioners. One is a category of people who worship the avyakta form of the Lord, and the other, which basically is worshipping the Chaturbhuja or the Virata Rupa of Bhagavan. So one is Saguna, the other is Nirguna. Because if you can see the Rupa, then automatically you can say it's blue, black, grey, whatever it may be. So you can give a Visheshana to the Visheshya in that case. And you can have a description of it, as in it is now Saprakaraka Jnana. That is, you can say God is like this, God is like that, and so on. Okay. And very interestingly, this is not possible with Nirguna Brahma. You cannot say Nirguna Brahma is white, lives in a certain land, and so on. So these are two very different categories and also seemingly opposed categories. Now these two seemingly opposed categories, there are two set of practitioners who practice the upasana or do the upasana of Avyakta and Vishwarupa, and who among them is the best? And to this Bhagavan answers. So Bhagavan says in the second verse, so this is Arjuna Uvacha, this is Arjuna's question, and Bhagavan says based on this that Maya Veshya Mano Ye Mam Nitya Yukta Upasate Shraddhaya Parayopetaha Te Me Yukta Tama Mataha. And Bhagavad Pada Adi Shankara asked a question. Okay, the ones who are endowed with Parashraddha, they are Yuktatama, that's fine. But Kimitare Yuktatamaha na bhavanti. Is it that the other ones, the Itaras, the other ones, the other set of people, are they not Yuktatamaha? No, no, it's not like that. But whatever has to be said regarding them, now listen to it. So this is Bhagavad Pada's Vakya. He is bringing a context to this shloka. So the shloka is Yetu, and we will do 3 and 4 together. We will see the reason also why it is to be done together. But I will chant these two together. So we will say Ye tu aksharam anirdeshyam avyaktam pariupasate sarvatragam achintyancha kutastham achalam dhruvam. And samniyamendriya gramam sarvatra samabuddhayah te prapnuvanti mameva sarvabhuta hite rataha. Ye tu akshara or aksharam. What is aksharam? I'm just giving a word to word, word by word meaning here. The ones who do upasana, paryupasate, ye paryupasate, come. To whom they are doing upasana? Aksharam, one which does not have ksharana. Ksharana means kshaya. one which does not have any form of decomposition or modification. Anirdeshyam, one which cannot be indicated as it is this, that cannot be done. And one which is avyakta, one which is present everywhere or goes everywhere, sarvatra gamam, and one which cannot be thought of with the mind, one which does not move, kutastham achalam dhruvam, and one which is present in all, kutastha. I'm doing a very crude translation. We will see a very exact definition of each of these terms as we look at the bhashya. I will anyway do that when I do a basic vivriti of these padas. So those people who worship Brahman, who is such and such, Aksharam, Anirdeshyam, Avyaktam, Sarvatragam, Achintyam, or rather I should say not that, because all of these are Dvitiya vibhaktis. So I should rather say Akshara, Anirdeshya, Avyakta, Sarvatraga, Achintya, Kutastha, Achala, and Dhruva. So if I add this if I add this im over here, then that would lead to Dvitiya vibhakti. So we are not using Dvitiya vibhakti here in the Vivriti because we are just looking at the Visheshanas as such, the descriptive terms for Brahman. Now, okay, Brahman is such and such, that's fine. But what else does this set of people need to do? Samniyam Mendriya Gramam. They need to control their Indriya Gramas. The collection of all Indriya collective has to be controlled. Sarvatra Samabuddhaya. They should have Samabuddhi everywhere, Sarvatra. Te Prapnuvanti Mameva. And one more thing, Sarvabhuta Hite Rataha. They should always be engaged in the welfare of all. Such set of people, such category of people, they attain me only, mameva, te prapnuvanti. So this is a very crude translation of what is there in the two verses. So the context was Kintu tan prati yat vaktavyam. Whatever has to be said for that other category which was not called Yuktatama in the second verse, for them whatever Bhagavan has to say is being described in 3 and 4. Now let me give a more general context. So the context is this, that what is the difference between Nirgunopasana and Sagunopasana? And what is better, or what is, as Madhusudana Saraswati Pada has said, what is more contextually fitted for Arjuna, and that is first being described, and then the next one. So point is, okay, Arjuna is a better fit for Sagunopasana, that is what Madhusudana Saraswati Pada has said. But what about Avyaktopasana? Anyway, Bhagavan is describing that later. So is there any difference at all between the two? Madhusudana Saraswati Pada is very clear that this gradation, or rather this sequential description, is based on the adhikara of the sadhaka. Now the question is, okay, let it be a sequential description based on adhikara. Still, I'm still asking, is there any difference? So let us start with that context. So, as I said, is there any difference between Nirgunopasana and Sagunopasana? So, there is a difference in the process and in the phala. This comes in the 11th adhyaya. Please make a note of this if you are writing, or if you have a pen. 11th adhyaya, 54th verse, this comes. Bhaktya tu ananyaya shakya ahamevam vidhorjuna ज्ञातुम द्रष्टुम च तत्वेन प्रवेष्टुम च परंतप. Bhagavan says to Arjuna, O Parantapa, by Ananya Bhakti, it is possible to know me like this, to see me like this, and to enter in me. This is the verbal translation of that verse that I am giving. What does pravesha mean? Pravishtum. What does pravesha mean? Is it mixing in something? Is it some X entering some Y? Something like that? No. It just means that X gets to know that it essentially is Y. That is pravesha. Tatvatah pravesha. Not any physical pravesha. It's not X going to some land, some space, or some time. No, it's not like that. It's knowing that X essentially is Y. So tatvatah. Now, with nirguna upasana, you will have the jnana of Brahma. You will get to know that you indeed are Brahman itself. And by that you will have this pravesha. Now you know that you are Brahman, so there is no difference, and there was no time when you were not Brahman. There is no time that currently that you are not Brahman, and there will be no time when you will cease to be Brahman. So if you know that, then your pravesha is already done. So pravesha has happened. That jnana nishtha has also come now. That okay, it is not a snippet of knowledge that I have gained from some Vedanta class. It is very much part of my own realization. But as I said, with nirguna upasana you can get this jnana and pravesha. But it will not be possible that you do an upasana of nirguna and you will get darshan of saguna and sakara. That will not happen. But if you have this ananya bhakti, towards the saguna form, then it is possible to get jnana and pravesha both. In the verse that I mentioned, let me just go there so that it becomes easy for you to see it. So we are in the Ekadash Adhyaya, 54th verse, as I said. 54. Yes. If you see here, there are two words that have come, right? Gyatum, drashtum have come together. So what does this indicate? Gyatum indicates you know by buddhi, and drashtum indicates you get a sakshatkara. By buddhi you know, oh, this is the rupa of my ishta. Now, drashtum means you get a darshana of that ishta rupa, of saguna rupa. And praveshtum, you end up knowing that this ishta is none other than me, without any limiting adjuncts. If I remove my jiva upadhi, if I remove this mithya notion that I am jiva, I essentially is the same as my ishta. But then ishta is also ishvara, right? So there is also an avidyopadhi over there. So even that has to be removed, because ishta, whenever you say, you are putting a constraint on Brahman. You are saying that, okay, this is the form. But Brahman has either all forms or no forms, right? So you cannot limit there. So once those limiting adjuncts of Saguna and Saguna Ishvara and the Jiva Sadhaka are gone, then you realize that, okay, the truth underlying the two is essentially one. As you see, whenever we do the Mangalacharan for our pathas, we say Ishvaro Guru Ratmeti. So Ishvara, Guru and Atma are the same. So this is, or rather I should say, Ishvara and Guru are essentially Atman itself. That's all. So Praveshtum is to know that you and the Saguna Rupa are essentially the one. So we see that the process is different and the upasanas are also different. There is also one extra benefit with this bhakti. The benefit comes in the 12th uh, adhyaya itself. So the benefit is this. Bhagavan says, Teshamaham samudharta mrityu samsara sagarat bhavami nachirat partha maya veshita chetasam. This is 12.7. So, if you have engaged your mind in the Lord, then He Himself will take care of taking you through this samsara sagara. Bhagavan says, Tesham, for them I am the Samudharta. I am the Uddharakarta. What is Samudharta? Bhagavan himself comes to do the Uddhara. So this is one thing. That there is a dependency. Nirguna Upasana, on the other hand, is a little bit tougher. Which is why Madhusudana Saraswati Pada is giving that Adhikari Bheda based explanation. Nirguna Upasana, what happens is that you are supposed to salvage yourself. Because this Nirguna Tattva is not benevolent towards the Bhakta, and it's not also under the control of prema. It's not prema paradhina. But Saguna Ishvara is both Bhakta Vatsala. He has some benevolence, some karuna towards his Bhakta. And he's also prema paradhina. Because Nirguna, whenever you say Nirguna, then automatically there is no point of saying Bhakta Vatsalata. If that Tattva is Bhakta Vatsala, then Bhakta Vatsalya itself becomes a guna, right? So that is not possible. So there is a difference therefore in these two upasanas. As I said, Nirguna Upasana will have Pravesha, Jnana, everything else. Saguna Sakshatkara will not happen. But with Saguna Sakshatkara, with Saguna Upasana, Nirguna can also be attained. Other thing is it is tougher. You yourself have to take the onus of salvaging yourself. So that's the difficult aspect about it. Now the other thing is, how does Nirguna Upasana begin? Nirguna Upasana is Jigyasadheen, or rather, it starts after Jigyasa. There is a Jigyasa. I want to know Brahman. And what does that lead to? That leads to Jnana. And finally, even that Jnana does not remain. So in Vedanta we say, you have Brahma Jigyasa, and from that you achieve or attain a certain state of mind, aham brahmasmi. This is called as akhandakara vritti. Akhandakara vritti. That is, you attain a certain state, a state of mind, a vritti, in which you get to know this. And then even, because what is vritti? Vritti is born in some time. It got created in some time. and hence this vritti will also go away. Does that mean that a Brahmagyani ceases to be a Brahmagyani later on after Samadhi? No, it does not mean that. It simply says that once that vritti comes and you get to that realization, it's like, I'm just giving a very laukika analogy. It's simply this, that uh, if you know earlier when you did not know counting, you did not know 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. The moment somebody taught you 1 plus 1 is equal to 2, that vritti stayed on in your mind. But does the vritti linger on till eternity? No. If that was the case, then no other thought would be possible, right? That is not happening. So what is happening is that this vritti goes away, but you are still left with that realization that 1 plus 1 indeed is equal to 2. So this is the state. So this jnana vritti then becomes, or then leads to an anavritti. That is, there is no, or there is, or rather I should say, this jnana vritti leads to an anavritti. There is no such vritti anymore, but you stay on with that realization. But in Saguna Upasana, there is a speciality, that is, Shraddha is there. This was based on Jigyasa. Here you have Shraddha. And what kind of Shraddha we have seen? Para Shraddha. That is what the Yuktatama Upasakas have. In fact, this Bhakti Yoga chapter itself starts with Shraddha. Bhagavan starts with the statement on Shraddha. Shraddhaya parayopetaha, he says. And if you see the last verse, that also says, Yetu dharmyam mritamidam yathoktam paryupasate shraddhadhana mat paramaha bhaktaha te ativa me priyaha. I'm not going into a translation or a discussion on that verse. But the point is that it starts with Shraddha, it ends with Shraddha. And everywhere he's saying, earlier he was saying the ones who are endowed with Parashraddha are Yuktatama. Here he is saying that the ones who are endowed with Shraddha, they are very priya to me. They are Ativa Priya. So this is the broad difference between the process and the Phala Shruti of the two categories or the two upasanas. There is one more difference which becomes more easily knowable once somebody is in some upasana. That is, whenever there is vairagya, viveka, these qualities in a sadhaka, in a practitioner, it is then that nirguna upasana is possible. And what is the path? The path is, you start saying, okay, this finite entity is Brahman. And then you see, okay, anything finite cannot be Brahman. You go to a more subtler thing, then say, okay, this is Brahman. Okay, then this also has a problem of finiteness. So you keep doing this and keep saying na iti, neti, neti. So each finite entity. Okay, this stone is Brahman. Then no. Stone does not have Chetana. It is not Brahman. Then you move to this human body is Brahman. No. Human body cannot be Brahman. Then you say no, the Indriyas, the Sukshma Indriyas, they are Brahman. No, that is also not Brahman. Mind is Brahman. No, mind is also not Brahman. I'm not going into that process of Vedanta. But what we are trying to do, we are trying to go through a process of elimination and see that Brahma cannot be indicated using certain words which indicate a finite existence. Therefore, what is happening? you see very clearly that this path, of course, you need to have Viveka, Vairagya, and other things. That's one. The other is you need to remove any notion of finiteness from Brahman. Do this neti, 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 neti till you reach a state where nama, name, form, kriya, action, jati or category, these things do not remain. So in such a avastha, in such a state, your mind has to be fixed. The point is that to attain that vritti is somewhat difficult, and to also make sure that that vritti stays on, because there is no alambana, right? You don't have a support. But for the bhakta, there is some support, there is some rupa on which, or some nama, something on which he can or she can concentrate. But nirguna upasana, as I said, depends on viveka vairagya. What kind of vairagya is required? So this comes very nicely in the Mundaka Upanishad. It says, Parikshya lokan karmachitan brahmano nirvedamayan nastya kritah kritena. That is, the the practitioner the practitioner examines the phalas of all karmas, and these phalas could be attained here or hereafter, and realizes that none of these are everlasting, and he attains a state of nirveda. This word also exists in Bengali, just means vairagya, non-attachment. And point is that nirveda has to be for everything. It's not just laukika things, also swargaloka, brahmaloka, vaikuntha, saketa, everything. You need to have that kind of vairagya. So that dridha vairagya is very difficult to attain. But shraddha, to some extent, if not parashraddha, but to some extent, a very base form of shraddha is certainly there in a considerably or relatively large number of people. So that is considered as somewhat sugama, this path. So what is being said over here in these two verses? Dvadashodhyaya. I will again go to these two verses and repeat the context, or repeat the not the context but the two verses. The two verses are ये तु अक्षरम अनिर्देश्यम अव्यक्तम पर्युपासते सर्वत्र गम अचिन्त्यञ्च कूटस्थम अचलम ध्रुवम. The other is संयमेन्द्रिय ग्रामम सर्वत्र समबुद्धयः ते प्राप्नुवन्ति मामेव सर्वभूतहिते रताः. That is, as I said, the meaning has been already conveyed. These two verses collectively indicate, and I will go to the bhashya, but before that, this bhumika is important. Nirguna upasana has to be done. Whose nirguna upasana has to be done? For that, Bhagavan is giving these words, aksharam, anirdeshyam, and so on. So what did Arjuna ask? In the 12th chapter, first verse, Arjuna said, Ye chapi aksharam avyaktam. So he was mentioning about the upasakas of akshara, and that is what is being answered here. ये तु अक्षरम अनिर्देश्यम अव्यक्तम इत्यादि. Akshara, this word comes in multiple places in the Gita. As I have already given a very crude translation, Bhagavan himself defines it in different places. So Bhagavan says, Avyaktokshara ityuktah tamahu paramam gatim. Akshara represents Paramatma, who is devoid of any modifications or any ksharana. In Gita, Nirguna Brahman is called as Akshara. So what is Akshara? Akshara is that which is Ksharana Vihina. So anything that is created in the world has some Ksharana. In that way, if you look at Brahman, which was never created, does not have any Ksharana. It is also Anirdeshyam. That is the other word, Anirdeshyam. As I said, what is Anirdeshyam? You cannot indicate it by means of words. Any vastu, if you want, you can please make a note of this. Uh, any vastu can be indicated only in 5 ways. One is by jati, that is category. What does that mean? The person is a manushya. That means that the person belongs to manushya jati, the manushya category. Or if we say that the person is a doctor, it belongs to the doctor jati. Then guna. Guna is, it is good, it is bad, so on. He is wicked, she is clever, and so on. Kriya. He is a professor, he is an engineer, she is a doctor, she is a paramed, and so on. Rudhi. The other is rudhi or usage. Rudhi means general usage of a particular, or rather, rudhi, I should define it in this way, that why do we, suppose, for example, if I have a nickname for a certain person, then the person's description may not, the physical description and all may not go with that nickname, but we still have it. And where does the nickname come from? An agreed upon common usage between the friends, and that is being used here. So rudhi means common usage. The other is sambandha, that is that vastu should be related to something. It is person X's car, it is person Y's home, and so on. It is he or she is person X's husband, and so on. So Paramatma or Atma cannot be indicated by words, because Nirguna Paramatma does not have a category, does not have guna, does not have kriya, does not have rudhi, does not have any relationship also. The other word that comes is sarvatragam, or rather avyaktam. Sorry, avyaktam comes, right? So avyaktam means one which is not manifest, one which is hidden. So Brahman is at the root of all actions, all creation and everything. And it is also true that Brahman is nirguna. It does not have a rupa, that is fine. But rupa also will not exist without Brahman. So it can also be said to be sarva rupa. But yet this Brahman is beyond all this and cannot be seen visibly. Cannot be seen or cannot be perceived, just like we perceive a laptop or we perceive any other thing. So this Paramatma has to be meditated upon, or this Paramatma has to be worshipped. And what is the paddhati of doing its upasana? By means of a chintana. Chintana is this, that wherever I see, it is only you. This is the upasana, this is the chintana. And how can we refine that chintana? How can somebody refine that chintana? That is sarvatragam or sarvatra. It is present everywhere. It is present in all space. There is no space where it is not there. Achintyam cannot be thought of with buddhi. Kutastham. Kutastha means avinashi, or that which is without destruction. Achalam. Achalam means which does not have any movement. Now, achalam. Achalam represents the fact that it does not have any spandana, any movement in itself. And this is where Advaita differs from Kashmir Shaivism. Kashmir Shaivism accepts spanda. There is vibration, there is spandana in Brahman. But the moment you say there is spandana in Brahman, that means there is some avayava in Brahman. That means that the Brahman has swagata bheda. That is, there is difference in different parts of the Brahman. Otherwise, how there would be spandana? So, in that sense, there is a difference between Kashmir Shaivism and Kevala Advaita as propounded by Bhagavad Pada Adi Shankara. So this is, both are Advaitic schools of thought. Both are Advaitic philosophies. But yeah, there are some differences. So one difference we have seen. We may see a few more later on. Now, let me again go back to that word avyakta. Avyakta simply means that which does not get colored or represented wrongly by the indriyas. A thing which is represented along with the samskaras as imposed by the indriyas, such a thing is called as vyakta. Now, Paramatma is beyond indriya, therefore it is avyakta. What is sarvatragam? As I said, it is everywhere. What does everywhere mean? It is present in all the three states of our existence. Jagrata, Swapna, Sushupti, and even beyond that. What is beyond that? It simply means that if you don't divide your existence into these three categories, Brahman still remains. So it is always there. And it is all present in all spaces, as I've already said. Achintya. It does not become the subject, or rather it does not become an object of thought for mana buddhi. Kutastha is simply, it is present inside everything, and yet it is not connected with everything. It is disconnected with everything. It is asanga. Achalam, I have already said, and dhruva. Dhruva is fixed. What does that mean? From a tattva perspective, it simply means it is everlasting. It does not have kala parichheda. That is, it does not get destroyed or created in time. How do we do the upasana of such Brahman? So we do these kirtanas, right? Soham, Soham, Shivoham, Shivoham. All these kirtanas are there. Is that Nirgunopasana? No, it is not. It should have three things. Bhagavan is now saying. What are those three things? Sanniyam Yendriya Gramam. And then Sarvatra Samabuddhaya. And the third one is सर्वभूतहिते रताः. Actually, these three things can also be used for Sagunopasana. So suppose Bhagavan is Virat Vishwarupa, and if he is Vishwarupa, then the whole world is his Rupa. Then anyway, you will try to be engaged in the welfare of all things. You will always be Sarva Bhuta Hite Rata. Yeah. The other thing is Sanniyam Mendriya Gramam. Control your indriyas and make sure that they do not engage in the upabhoga or do not get engaged in perceiving external objects. How do we do this? Narayana or the Lord is present as the antaryami in my heart, and I focus my mind in that antasthita Narayana. Sarvatra Samabuddhaya, how will a Sagunopasaka look at it? For him, Jiva and Brahma are different, right? So anything which is not Brahman is belonging to the same category, not Brahman. So if I have uh, the set A, which is just Brahman, then the other set would be A complementary, AC. So that non-Brahman set, everything else comes in that set. And then because it is not Brahman, it is not important to you. So you can have a Samabuddhi of that kind as well. So all these are plays of Maya. All these are in Ishvara. You can think of it in multiple ways. Or you can think that Ishvara is present in each of these things and beings. In multiple ways you can do this Samabuddhi. Now, Sanniyamendriya Gramam. We will now look at a more general way of seeing, of approaching this particular phrase, Sanniyamendriya Gramam. Sanniyamya, it simply means that you do niyamana or control samyak prakarena in a proper way. सम्यक रूप से नितराम always it should be in control. All the indriyas, what does all the indriyas mean? Only sense organs? No. Only organs of perception? No. Also karmendriyas, all the 10 indriyas. So it is not enough to just control only my eyes. I will not see anything bad with my eyes, but I will hear bad things with my ears. No, not like that. So samyak prakarena. So all the indriyas should be controlled together and totally. Because unless your indriyas become introverted from extroverted, the manas cannot become introverted. And if the manas is not introverted, how will you do this chintana of Nirguna Brahma? You cannot do this. You cannot do this upasana. Sarvabhuta hite rataha. That is the other term. This is the essence of all dharma. In the Mahabharata we see, Shruyatam dharma sarvasvam shrutva chaiva avadharyatam atmanah pratikulani paresham na samacharet. Listen to the entirety of dharma, and after listening this, avadharyatam, retain it. What is the essence of dharma? Atmanah pratikulani. Whatever you feel is against you or is pratikula to you, don't do that same thing for the other to the other person. The point is, how can I be Sarva Bhuta Hiterata? Should I go and try to benefit each and every being? That is not possible. But the bhava should be always of this, that there should be welfare of everything and being in this world. That is the broader point that is being made. In fact, this comes very nicely in Bhagavatam also. सर्वभूतेषु मद्भावं पुंसो भावयतः चिरात् स्पर्धा सूया तिरस्काराः साहंकार अभियन्ति. It is spardha, asuya, tiraskara. All such qualities have to be, or all such bad vices, all these vices have to be given up. Sarvatra samabuddhaya. Samabhava has to be there. Now, as I said, if you take the Jnana Marga, anyway, there is nothing apart from Brahman. So that Chintana has to be there. And the other Samabuddhi is possible for the Nirguna or for the Saguna Upasanas. And what does the one get by doing all this practice? You have talked about all this practice, but what does the one get from all this practice? Te prapnuvanti mameva. They also, these Nirguna Upasakas, they also attain me. That is the thing that is being said. So, who is the speaker? Shri Krishna. You may say Shri Krishna is Saguna. He is a person with two hands and all that, right? So, should it not indicate this Mameva? Should it not indicate to Saguna Brahma? No. Here he is doing the Prayoga of this word Aham. Aham is the Pratipadika. And for that Dvitiya Vibhakti is Mam. He is using this Mam in the sense of Nirguna Brahma. So, this keeps changing. His reference to himself keeps changing. I mean, the context, according to the context, that Mam, Mama, and all those things have to be seen. Now, any questions till now? Because then we will move to Bhashya from the next Patha. But any question? Okay, so I assume there are no questions here.
No.
Okay, fine. So, then we can now look at the Bhashyam. I will just take the first line and stop it there itself. I will not go beyond the first line. This is the first line of the Bhashya. Yetu, or rather, we can just take these two lines actually. This will be good. So, Yetu aksharam anirdeshyam. I'm just reading it. Avyaktat अशब्दगोचर इति न निर्देष्टुं शक्यते अतः अनिर्देश्यम् अव्यक्तं न केनापि प्रमाणेन व्यजत इति अव्यक्तं पर्युपासते परिसमन्तात् उपासते उपासनं नाम यथाशास्त्रम् उपास्यस्य अर्थस्य विषयीकरणेन सामीप्यम् उपगम्य तैलधारावत् समान प्रत्यय प्रवाहेण दीर्घकालं यत् आसनं तत् उपासनम् आचक्षते. So he's giving a very beautiful definition of upasana, which also links it with meditation or dhyana. So he is arranging these words now. He's saying the people who ye tu do the upasana of Brahman who has such and such qualities. Akshara, Anirdeshya, and who being avyakta is also not indicated by any shabda, and hence is also anirdeshya. अव्यक्तं न केनापि प्रमाणेन व्यजत इति अव्यक्तं पर्युपासते. It is also not known by any pramana, that is any means of knowledge. What is any means of knowledge? By your eyes, by inference. You cannot infer about Brahman. You cannot infer, you cannot do a logical inference for existence of Brahman. Why cannot you do a logical inference? Pratyaksha you cannot do, we can already see, because if it's nirguna, how can you see it? But with naked eyes. But what about inference? Why is inference not possible? So that's one question that I have for you. You can try to answer this, and then we will uh, take this and complete this sentence. So why inference, why a logical deduction is not possible to prove the existence of Brahman? Think of it. Want to share your thoughts on this? Okay, fine. So the idea is, say, suppose you logically establish that okay, everything that is created has a creator, so world is also a creation, therefore it must also have a creation. So I have proved it. Now this is one logic, right? The first cause principle. But then this can be refuted, right? The refutation is that if everything must have a cause, then Brahman must also have a cause, and then you go to a problem of infinite regress. So therefore, it is not possible to use that logic. That is, logic is based on your pratibha. You are talented enough to prove the existence of some Brahman. But what if somebody more meritorious than you comes? Then will it be the case that Brahman will cease to exist because somebody has put forth a better logic against its existence? So Anumana or inference also does not work, and so on. We will see this statement in greater detail later. In this word pramana, rather, this phrase pramana, we will see that later. But the other thing that is being said is upasanam nama yatha shastram upasyasya arthasya vishayikaranena, and so on. What does this mean? The upasya vastu should be made the object of your chintana as per the instructions laid down in the Shastra, Yatha Shastra. Do not create a sadhana for yourself. Follow the Shastra. And having done that, Samipyam Upagamya, you go closer to it by doing the Chintana. And how should that Chintana be? It should lead to a state where you keep thinking only of it as the dhara, as the flow of oil. As an oil flows and we do not see a break in that flow, right? There is no break in the flow. In the same way, samana pratyaya pravahena. It should not be the case that you are thinking of Brahman and then suddenly you think of an ice cream and then again Brahman, then again ice cream and so on. That samana, that same pratyaya should continue pravahena. It should continue like a pravaha, a series for a long time. Dirgha kalam, yat asanam. That kind of stay That kind of stay. What is stay here? Asana. That kind of stay, which is essentially chintana of Brahman, Nirguna Brahma, in such a way that you keep thinking of it continuously without any break. That particular kind of stay or staying near Brahman is called Upasanam. Upa is close. So you only become close when you do this kind of thing. That is, if we say that somebody is an Upasaka, even the word Upasaka is a tough, I mean, it's a tough nut to crack. It's very difficult to be an Upasaka, therefore. Nobody can be an Upasaka if this kind of state is not attained. So with this, I close my discussion on the third verse for today's patha, and we move on to the discussion on the same shloka, and its Shankara Bhashya and Madhusudani and so on in the next
Okay.
patha. So with this, I close it with the Mangala Charana. Akhandam Satchidanandam Avang Manasagocharam Atman Akiladharam Ashraye Bhishta Siddhaye Shrutismriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpada Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha अर्धमात्राम मात्रांच देवतां विजनोज्वलां ओंकार रूपिणीं देवीं नित्यं वन्दे सुनिर्मलाम् श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः हरये नमः श्री कृष्णार्पितमस्तु।